One of the Liberals on the hot seat over the GST is the Deputy Prime Minister, who made a promise of her own to resign unless the tax was axed. Here's Heather Hiscox on how some people see that promise now.
This is Sheila Copps country, Hamilton, Ontario, Steel Town. Copps is a lot like this city, tough, feisty, no nonsense. Voters here like that. Support for Copps has been rock solid since she entered politics 15 years ago. But now, for the first time, there are questions.
Should Sheila Copps resign?
By all means.
Tell me why.
On the local talk radio station, the phone lines were jammed, the callers unanimous.
She's going to have to resign or else she's going to be kicked out in the next election.
If we're to have any respect for politics or politicians in Canada in the future, she has to resign.
On the streets of Copps riding, the same message.
She put her foot in her mouth, resign.
This is what's coming back to haunt the Deputy Prime Minister, a promise she made in the heat of the last election campaign.
Personally and very directly that if the GST is not abolished, I'll resign.
This is not perfection.
Yesterday, the Liberals made it clear the GST is here to stay, and contrary to her promise, so is Copps. Today, as she guided Prince Charles through Churchill, Manitoba, there was no hint at resignation, only an apology of sorts.
Sometimes I shoot from the lip and maybe I shouldn't.
This pollster says that won't be enough to undo the damage to Copps' integrity.
In a day and age of hypocrisy and cynicism, when a politician stands up and for principles says what they are going to do and doesn't go through with, I mean, the public will hold them with some measure of contempt.
The GST is the great Satan of taxes.
According to this editorial writer, Copps is caught in a dilemma.
Whether she would ever get defeated if there was an election tomorrow night, I wouldn't bet on that, frankly, but clearly she's been hurt.
Still, not every voter has jumped off the Copps bandwagon.
To lose her, we lose too much.
Sheila Copps will be hoping that's the majority view, that voters here remember her record and not her promise to resign. Heather Hiscox, CBC News, Hamilton, Ontario.
Good evening. There is turmoil at the top tonight. Jean Chrétien's government jolted by the resignation of Deputy Prime Minister Sheila Copps. She toughed it out for more than a week, vowed to stay on, then suddenly decided she could no longer live with her broken promise on the GST. We begin tonight with our chief political correspondent, Jason Moskowitz.
To know Sheila Copps is to know how much she loves politics, the degree to which she is consumed by politics. To know Sheila Copps is to know she sees herself as a future leader of the Liberal Party.
My father used to say that there were two elements to public life that were critical: honesty and hard work. And I think I've worked hard to sustain my honesty, and I want to keep that.
Winning back her Hamilton riding may be the easy part compared to re-establishing her credentials as a major player in national politics. And you have to figure Copps knows that better than anyone.
Monday of this week, I was at the bank machine, and it was probably the first time in my political career that I wasn't able to look somebody straight in the eye. And for me, it's important that I can look Canadians straight in the eye, and I think that the only way to clear the air is to step down and put my fate in the hands of the people.
When politicians resign on matters of principle, there is often happiness, even a lightheadedness. But Copps' resignation was clouded by a basic question. Why did it take more than a week to resign over the principle of keeping a promise? Last week it wasn't a principle, just a mistake.
Sometimes I shoot from the lip and maybe I shouldn't.
At a weekend meeting of her party, she was still committed to riding out the storm.
No, I don't make my decisions based on editorials. I make them based on conscience.
Today, Copps saw things very differently.
I gave my word, and I think it's important for the people of Hamilton East that I keep it.
She gave her word in the election campaign she would resign if the GST was not abolished.
I think you've got to be accountable on the things that you say you're going to do, and you have to deliver.
The GST was not abolished. She has resigned. But she wants back into government as soon as possible. And she no longer believes the Liberals should abolish the GST.
The GST is moving ahead on harmonization as per the Red Book, and I certainly don't intend to run against the government.
But the commitment we've made to the public is we want to get rid of the GST.
The Prime Minister used to talk about abolishing the GST, and he was well aware of Copps' dilemma. Sources insist Chrétien never asked for Copps's resignation. He believed the government would survive the controversy. But in personal terms, she felt her position was untenable. They met twice yesterday, talked on the phone last night, again this morning. Copps insisted she had to go.
I've always been a straight shooter, and I'd like to keep it that way. And I'm prepared to put it all on the line.
For 2.5 years, the Prime Minister boasted he never lost a minister to scandal or controversy. But now he's not only lost a minister, he's lost the Deputy Prime Minister. And the issue which led to her resignation directly touches the Prime Minister. The GST promise, the promise that keeps coming back to haunt the Liberals. Jason Moskowitz, CBC News, Ottawa.
Former Deputy Prime Minister Sheila Copps is counting on this being the final weekend of her self-imposed political exile. Copps is running in the by-election in the riding of Hamilton East. The vote is on Monday. The by-election was called when Copps resigned over her promise that a Liberal government would kill the GST. The CBC's Howard Gould looks at the final days of the campaign.
Here she is! The last time Sheila Copps faced the voters, she took more than 2/3 of all the ballots cast. But Copps and her machine are taking no chances.
Hélène Chrétien.
In an example of the extraordinary effort, the wife of the Prime Minister dropped into Hamilton today and made a very pointed endorsement.
I'm delighted to be here for Sheila. Jean is very eager for her to return to Parliament and to Cabinet.
A little bit later, what are you going to talk to? That's the people at home.
Copps is running in a crowded field, and all the fire is concentrated on her, the GST, and her resignation.
This whole by-election is a sham. It's a phony resignation, and we shouldn't have to be put in a position of this nature. It's costing us $500,000.
We're going to go in and see Sheila here.
Hamilton East has become a national battleground, with national figures, such as Deborah Gray of the Reform Party, busy campaigning, even inside Copps's own campaign headquarters.
Wanting to do with Sheila's pension that she doesn't have the nerve to do. That's what they want to do.
I've been surprised by the strength of the personal attack against me in terms of people from the outside, or the virulence of it.
Education and health care in this country should be a right, it's not a privilege.
The NDP campaign stays away from political stunts and personal attacks, and there are signs it may be stronger than people expect.
There's some anger out there, but I stay away from that on the doorstep. I don't talk about Sheila and resignation.
Most observers expect Copps will win Monday.
While her support has slipped and her raw vote total is going to go way down, the people that are still with her are incredibly solid. There's a lot of loyalty.
The loyalty is there, but there is also some backlash. You voted for Sheila Copps last time?
Oh, yeah.
And this time?
Not too sure. Have to really think hard.
And that's why Sheila Copps is running so hard. Howard Gould, CBC News, Hamilton.
The political career of Sheila Copps will be on the line Monday. That's when the voters of Hamilton East will cast their ballots and pass judgment on her decision to resign over the GST and run for re-election. Leon Corby reports.
Oh, we won't forget.
Big thing Monday.
Yeah,
thanks
we're
a
going
lot.
to support you.
Sheila Copps is literally running for her political life. Never mind that she's owned this seat since 1984 and won the last election by more than 17,000 votes. Copps is taking nothing for granted.
I'm running for this seat. I'm running hard for this seat. I think we run an excellent campaign, and I'm focusing on Monday getting the vote out.
This all started when Copps promised during the last election that she'd quit if the Liberals didn't scrap the GST. When it became clear the GST was staying, the pressure mounted on her to quit. The former Deputy Prime Minister did, and she hopes this by-election ends that chapter.
In the parliamentary process, the ultimate decision is the decision of the people in a particular riding. And when you have a by-election, I think the people of Canada, just like the candidates in this election, have to respect the wishes of the voters.
There are many issues in this multicultural working-class area of Hamilton, but most will tell you this by-election is about one thing.
When it comes right down to it, it's going to be about what Hamilton East feels about Sheila.
A new Democrat candidate, Wayne Marston, is hoping Hamilton East thinks it's time for a change. And he predicts the perennial runner-up here, the NDP, is about to benefit.
With the Race sweep, as a canvasser out there, about 6 to 8 days before, we knew we had a tiger by the tail. Well, that happened more than a week ago here.
This is a very crowded by-election with over 12 candidates vying for the job. And they have company. Some interest groups from outside the riding have spent money on very direct anti-Sheila campaigns, prompting some of Cops' supporters to fight back. They took out a full-page ad in the local newspaper, essentially telling the groups to butt out of Hamilton East's business. Indeed, some of the candidates have gotten into the billboard blitz with not-so-subtle reminders about what caused this vote. And in another example of full-contact politics, Deborah Gray, the Reform Party's deputy leader, and local candidate Andy Sweck barged into Cops' campaign headquarters on Thursday to make a point about MP's pension.
That this is what the voters in Hamilton East that I've talked to on the doorsteps are wanting to do with Sheila's pension, that she doesn't have the nerve. That's what they want to do.
Reform finished second here last time.
Now that GST is still there, so many residents find it farcical that Sheila's running again while the GST is still in place.
She's not going to get a 17,000 vote majority. That's out the window. It may be tight, it may be not so tight, but I think there is a sense, yeah, she's got to work for our trust again. You know, she blew it once, she's got to work before we're going to trust her.
Good evening. Sheila Copps rolled the dice on her political career, risking not just her seat in Parliament, but her job as a cabinet minister and deputy prime minister. Tonight, that risk paid off. Our chief political correspondent, Jason Moskowitz, is in Hamilton.
How are you?
Fine, thanks. How are you?
Good.
For Sheila Copps, it was the end of a campaign like no other she's ever fought. This one was almost exclusively about her, about a GST promise she can only wish she hadn't made. Always fully expected to win, coming out on top was only part of this by-election. The other key part is whether Copps would return to the Commons, damaged by the experience.
Is it a clean slate?
Did you wake up tomorrow morning and it's like, not that nothing ever happened, but that Sheila Copps continues with her career without any marks or with any scars from this?
I don't anticipate. I mean, I think the pundits and the pollsters will draw whatever conclusions that they want. I think the people of Hamilton East are the ones who draw the conclusion tonight, and we'll see what their conclusion is. I'm not thinking about tomorrow morning, I'm thinking about tonight.
Copps says she knocked on 32,000 doors. This was about working as hard as she could to prove she wasn't taking the hometown people of Hamilton for granted. But not everyone in this city felt Copps was worthy of their automatic vote. Even some people who claimed to be Liberals said today they would vote for someone else.
Well, I think that the Liberals' original platform to get rid of the GST should have been followed through. And in light of that, I just couldn't vote Liberal.
It's very discouraging when you place a vote with somebody, you have your faith in them and think that they're going to do what they say they're going to do, and then when they get in, it's a totally different scene. So,
Copps herself never expected to win the big majority she chalked up in 1993. But as the results started to come in this evening, it was clear she was in the lead and that she would be on her way back to Ottawa. In 1993, Sheila Copps got 67% of the vote in this riding. She's not getting that high this evening, but she's running over 50%, and that's a pretty impressive win in this by-election. Peter?
Jason, what happens to Sheila Copps now?
Well, she's almost been guaranteed by the Prime Minister that she will once again be the Deputy Prime Minister, as well as the Minister for Canadian Heritage. Let's remember that the Prime Minister only filled that job on a temporary basis, and he has been waiting for the return of Sheila Copps.
Briefly, does this result give the Liberals a chance to get the GST thing off their back?
Well, that's a big thing to get off the Liberals' back, but again, Peter, the win here in Sheila Copps' hometown, where she is very popular, has been an impressive win with over 50% of the vote.
Jason Moskowitz reporting to us tonight from Hamilton.